Hello, in this video we'll go over a quick class exercise on TopK. In this scenario we want to create interactive visualization that displays the most popular days, and there will be calendar dates. For Divvy rides, we'll use Q3 2017 file. We want to rank those days based on the number of trips that start on each day, and then create a parameter in a way that we can parameterize the number of days displayed from 1 to 20. And then we'll also want to allow for flexibility so that only certain trips count in this data visualization based on the number of minutes that we want to set as a limit, right? Or at least longer than that limit. So to get going, we will go into Tableau, find our file, load the file. We can leave it as a live connection, go to sheet 1 and clean up a bit, move some measures into dimensions that are not needed. We will use the number of trips, if you remember. So even though there is a count here of the records, we'll quickly create calculated field, number of trips. For that one, we will use the count distinct. Since it's number of trips, we're going to use the trip ID, which is a unique identifier of each trip. So we want to count each trip, like so. It says calculation is valid. It's called number of trips. And we have an equal sign in front. We know it's a calculated field. We also need to figure out calendar days. Do we have days? We really don't. We have a start time though, right? So we can use it. So let's do custom date by going to start time, create custom date, and we are going to find days. Okay, critical part to understand is we want date values, not date part. If you click on date part, notice what happens. You will have individual days, the parts of that field, right? So 1 to 30, all of them combined, all 3 months of data, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and so forth, right? We don't want that. So we will undo this, and we will actually create custom date using date values. Okay, now date values, it defaults it to continuous. It's green, right? So if you move it like that, it doesn't really show individually days, right? So we need to fix that, undo this, and make it discrete, convert to discrete. Now we have individual days. Perfect. So that's working, right? So what we now need to do is just add number of trips. We can drop it here, it's going to be a table, or if you drop it here, it's going to be a column. It's going to then, let's use a bar, and here they are. So we have all these dates, right? So now we need to start thinking about the process of actually ranking them in some way. In order to do that, we will use a calculated field, and we'll call that a row num days. And we'll just use a simple index function. That's it. That's all you need to do. It's going to create this new initially continuous measure. We need to convert that to be discrete values. So we will go and convert to discrete. And now we have it. We're going to move this newly created field into a row. And here they are. The problem with this is obviously that number 1 really does not work with our logic. We want number 1 to be the day that has the largest number of trips. That's certainly not the case. So what we need to do is somehow tie this index to a logic that makes sense from a business perspective, what we are trying to do. So we will go into the blue pill, row num days, and we will go into edit table calculation, specific dimension. We'll do custom. We certainly can use number of trips, but let's pretend we don't have it. We will use again trip ID and count the trip ID, count distinct, and do descending order. Okay, so now we have the logic so that this number 1 is actually associated with start time days in such a way that it counts number of trips and then sorts them in descending order, which ensures that item number 1 is the one with the largest number of trips, and then it goes in a descending order from there. That's that. So we now have something that's actually meaningful. These raw num days actually make sense. Okay. Now, what we want is actually to limit how many actually appear here. So we want to give the user the ability to do that. We will then create a parameter to help us with that. So create parameter, and we can call it TopK days. You can name it whatever you want. We want to make sure it's integer, all values. This everything can stay, but we want to do a range. And I believe in our scenario, we said from 1 to 20 or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. And then we click OK. And here we are, we have it right here, but it's not displayed. So we just want to make sure we show the parameter. It's right here. Let me just move this down. And then I can move it right here so it's easier to see. The problem we have is, parameter is there, but it's not actually causing your chart or visualization to change. You should not be surprised because we really didn't do anything with it. We need to somehow make sure that this parameter influences our data visualization. There are a few ways we can do that. One is if somehow it's part of data visualization directly or through a calculated field, then we move into data visualization. So we need to think about how can we use this and what we have to help us build that capability, right? So we have a raw num or index. So we can actually use it so that we can compare TopK days to the value here. So if it's equal or less than the value we selected, we are saying we want to keep it, okay? So is it 1 less or equal than 12? Yes, it is. So we want to keep it. 2, is it less or equal to 12? Yes, it is. So it will be part of that top 12 days. Once we get to, let's say, 13, is it less or equal than 12? It's not. So therefore, the number 13 would not be displayed. So in order to do that, we just need a calculated field to help us do that logic. So create calculated field, TopK days lag. Again, we can call it however you want. So what we want to do is compare raw num days and say, is it less or equal than our parameter, right? So we're going to move that parameter right here. So it can be yes or no. So it's true or false, right? What we are looking for is true. It's looking for for yes. Is the raw num days equal or less than TopK days? That will ensure that the number selected here will be the number of days that it's actually displayed. So click OK. Now, interestingly, nothing happened again, right? Well, it's really just a calculation that we didn't integrate with our visualization. So to integrate, we want to move it into filter and then select true. And here it is. It's working now. I see it's only 12. Now it's 8. Now it's 5, and it's doing its thing. So we are almost there. We now need to think about somehow to incorporate the logic of limiting the number of the trips in our visualization only if they are equal or more than some minute limit. How many minutes a trip was. So we don't want to count every trip in it. So to do that, again, let's create a parameter, because ultimately we want to give a user the ability to select what is that limit. And I can call it minute limit. It's again an integer, and it's a range. And let's say we want to start, anywhere from 1 to, let's say, 10 minutes. Okay. Here it is. We have it. Let's add it and show it so it's visible. Let's just put it right here. So let's say here we are saying, hey, I'd like to only count things that trips that are 5 minutes or more in length or duration, right? But nothing happened because, again, we didn't integrate it in our data visualization. So now we don't have to compare it to raw num, but we have something else we can use in our logic, right? We have trip duration, so we know how long every trip lasts. So we can compare that to the limit that we want to set and say, hey, I don't want to include anything less than 5 minutes or something like that. So instead of using raw num to compare it to our parameter, we're going to compare trip duration to our minute limit. So logic is kind of the same, it's just different variables. So we need a calculated field, and we can call it minute limit flag, kind of using the same syntax, I guess. And let's use that. Trip duration, is it less than equal to our minute limit? Okay. We have one issue though. Trip duration is in seconds. It needs to be in minutes because this is this represents minutes. So just takes seconds and divide them by 60 to convert them to minutes. We could have done a separate field, calculated it, and then moved it into this formula. It would have worked the same way. Calculation is valid. Okay, so now we have that minute limit flag, but it's not doing anything, right? And again, it's not doing anything because we are not integrating it in our data visualization. So it's again formula that's a Boolean, so it's true or false. So we want again true in this case. Let's select it. And here it is, now it's working. So we're now showing top 20 in such a way that we are not including the trips that are less than 5 minutes. So we want to include only the ones that are more. Let me just double check that I have that formula correct. Oops, that's wrong. We actually want more or equal to this, right? There we go. And now we are only including those that are longer than a certain number of minutes. So for example, show me top 20 in such a way where it's longer than 10 minutes and in duration, that trip. And that's it. So it's very simple. Just think about the fact that you first need to create baseline visualization, whatever is the dimension you want to use to sort the values. We know we have a count of trips and we also had days. We figured that one out first. Then we want to create an index. We use the row num days, I guess, field for that and embedded it. Then we needed to connect our row num days, if you remember, to a specific dimension. And then we had a custom sort on it so that this number is actually meaningful. This is crucial. This is really important to do. Once we have done that, then we integrated that in a logic where we compare the row num days to our TopK days parameter, and then we moved it into a filter, and it just worked. And very similar logic was then done with the minutes limit. Now, just so you know, we selected true just because the way we build the formula. You could have, had the signs opposite, greater than equal to, or something like that, or just greater. Then you would have selected false. So it works either way. So just, you need to kind of think, what is the business scenario?